minute.
Comma.
Period.
Elizabeth.
You know I know my period.
I like semicolons. I know people have feelings about that. Semicolons. Is it? Yeah.
I prefer.
Yes, you are. Kristen is a verb. How many verbs in the room? Adverbial phrase. Oh, M dash. I can see that being very true, Judy. M dash. How many gerunds in the room? Any gerunds in the room? Yes, we have a gerund. Adverbs. Any adverbs? Okay. The ly. We have, yeah. You didn't think you were, this is good. All right, we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Maya Stein. I am a writer, a poet. I am a Northport resident as of 4 years ago. And I'm currently Belfast's poet laureate, and I'm very excited to have that position. It's been an amazing opportunity to get to know the poetry community here, to be involved in all things poetry. And Marjorie is part of all things poetry in Belfast. I met Marjorie soon after I moved. I mean, I really can't exactly remember the day, but what I'm so appreciative about Marjorie is something that I sort of carry in myself, which is that a kind of multimedia, multi-genre artist. She's a multi-genre artist. And I've always had sort of a little bit of a struggle calling myself just a writer or just a poet, because among other things, I love to make dioramas and I love to cook. And, there's sort of this ecosystem of activities that feed my creative practice. And when I started getting to know Marjorie, I really felt a sense of such kinship with Marjorie because of that. Because if you've ever been to her house, for example, you walk in, and there's so much color and texture and just sort of her eye for beauty and for pleasure and color. It transcends art. It doesn't just involve visual art. It's sort of this thoughtfulness and this appreciation of space and feeling and environment and comfort and so I guess that's probably a great sort of segue into introducing her book, which is Ordinary Moments. Thank you, Marjorie. But to me, it feels like a synthesis of all those things. It's sort of her Marjorie's understanding of her environment, and the small moments and the sort of small textures and all of the ways that a life is made up of things and feelings and color and people. And to me, it was such a honor to read the book and to blurb the book. And I'm so happy to be here to share in conversation with Marjorie. When we talked about doing a kind of launch for her book, we said, let's just talk, because we like to talk to each other. And so this is going to be some conversation. There'll be some readings. We'll have some guest readers, and then we'll have, if there's any point where there's questions, we both agreed that we really kind of loathed the Q&A section of most events, because by the end of the actual main event, people are tired. and there's not much sort of enthusiasm to raise the hand. So if you have questions or comments, or you want to tell us what your part of speech is that you've been thinking about, or statements, or yes, be like George, make a statement. Yeah, but just really, this is intended as an informal gathering and a community gathering, and we're just really thrilled that you've made time in your day to be here. So thank you for being here with us. Marjorie, is there anything you want to say before I ask you a question?
No, but I love, it just makes me feel like I. have
Hold
a
your
lot of
mic up.
friends.
Put your mic up.
Oh. Hello. It's hard for me not to stick on this whole comma identity, but it's wonderful to look out, and I think both Maya and I feel very relaxed. And welcome, everyone. This is, as most of you know, my first book, and it was very, very hard for me. It took a year of very high learning curve, and now I really appreciate people's books. Isn't it so true? Once you climb that mountain and realize that other people have climbed that mountain, that you just are like, wow, how did they do that? But I did it, and feel very good about how it represents me. So thanks.
Yes, thank you. I don't know who said this, but there's a quote that follows me around a lot, which is let the beauty of what you love be what you do. It's something of a reminder of, when I'm thinking about how I'm doing something, doing it with love and doing it with care and doing it with beauty. And so I guess I'm curious how if that resonates for you, this idea of, to me, that's what I feel when I've spoken with you about your work, when I see your work, as I said, walking into your house. But what is it that you love to do?
Would you say that one more time, the quote?
Let the beauty of what you love be what you do.
But it could be opposite than that too. Let the beauty of what you do be what you love, which would work. So what was your question?
Well, what is it you love? Or what is it you do that you love about writing, about art? What is it that drives the bus of your making?
I think it's so much a part of me. It never occurs to me that it is ever separated from me. So for 50, 60 years, I've been painting and then got into writing. And I always thought if I ever went to prison, all I need is a few art supplies and I would be fine. So I don't know. In fact, for some of you know that my studio is very close to my bedroom. So when I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes I'll walk over to my studio. So it's so much, and see what I've done, do some problem solving. So it's never separated. It isn't like I think, well, I'm going to paint today. Somebody asked me the other day if I'm still painting or still writing. And that whole concept was so, I mean, it was a nice question, but it was so strange for me to think that I wouldn't be, it's just if there's a circle and we all have pieces of the pie, it's just a natural piece of let's make it a tart cherry pie. So it just is. It is something I don't make decisions about. And I'm not not a journal painter, or I love huge paintings, which many of you know. And writing, I like to write ordinary moments. I like to write the daily me of the past, and that's what I like.
Can you share a little bit about your is there a difference in the process that you approach these two things? Are they occupying different parts of your mind, or different aspects of your instincts? What are the tools that you use to approach those two things, and are they different?
No, I think both the painting and the writing are just I boldly go into them. Huge canvases, and writing, just writing. And then I love the editing. I love the cutting and the chiseling away, both in the writing particularly. And I have friends and groups that I work with that help me with that. And I've had people, very important people here, since I moved here from Michigan, that have given me confidence in editing. Same with painting. I'm working on a 48 by 48 right now. And it is the fun of getting the color down and then editing and editing and editing. So there's a commonality between the two. And that's my turn on, And I never know. I've never, ever used a photograph for painting ever in my life. And with writing, it's just putting down that history that I have and then being able to kind of manipulate it. Cynthia and I kind of have a joke. We were in the same woodshed at the same time, and it was to say to me after I read my poems, "Is that real?" And we became friends based on our laughter together. But not always is my writing real, but it takes from parts of my history usually.
I'm curious why this book now? What was the sort of what made you decide to put the book out now? Had you been wanting to put a book out for a while? Had you been assembling and waiting, or was there a sense of urgency or just timing? What made that happen?
I called together a group of friends to form a chapbook group. And these were people that have been writers for many, many years right here in the community, but had never put a book together. I needed an impetus to move forward. So many of those people are here, and that helped me. Also, I'm going to be 80 in November, and I knew that this was the time in my life. I'm healthy, I'm active, and it was a time that I felt I could put a book together. But that chapbook group, mine ended up not being a chapbook, too big, but that was pretty important for me. And I think we had about 13 at one time, right? Yeah, about 13, all wanting. And Liz spoke, Maya came and spoke to the group. So that camaraderie of a writing community working toward publishing was great. I think we did that for about a year, half a year, something like that.
Yeah, I think I work with other writers who, and there's sometimes a sense of things being sort of, they're waiting. Everything's behind the wings, behind the curtain, in the wings. Nobody can see what's going on until they're ready, until they're sort of, okay, I'm done. And it's sort of it's sort of like right, to the point of being done, ready to be shared. So I think what you're saying is so important about that. In some ways, the community that you grew around your writing and your work, it sort of put some bedrock underneath what was coming, so that so other people were in on it, and so in some ways that's a kind of accountability, or people asking you how's it going, or being able to share the experience of what you're working toward, even if you don't know exactly what you're working toward.
Yeah, I never know what I'm working toward. I also think, having been a painter for so long and had so many suggestions, I think I have become hardened a little bit. I don't feel that sensitivity that a lot of writers do as you start. So that lack of sensitivity, that confidence moved over into my writing. So when I would get edits or critiques or whatever, I didn't feel bruised. I saw that it was just part of the process, because the painting and years of people not liking them, people liking them, and then realizing it so yeah, I think I brought that to my writing for sure.
Yeah. One thing, I'm going to in a second have you read a poem just to sort of kick our reading part off a little bit. But what really strikes me about the book is there's so much freedom in it. The sort of a freedom of form, the sort of sense of permission of you that you gave yourself. I mean, not, this is not you to me, this is not something that you see a lot. You don't see a book of poems and drawings together by the same person. And so there's a kind of exposure there. Like this is it's not somebody else doing one thing and you doing the other thing. But there's also, to me, so much more of you in there. It's those things are colliding. And so someone can encounter one of the things I loved is someone can encounter you through the drawings and get a sense of who you are just as much as they might through the writing, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I don't really, because I'm not a painter or an artist, a visual artist that really, I sort of dabble in these things, but there's so much personality in these drawings. I mean, to me, and there's just a whimsy and such an accessibility in the drawings. You're not trying to make any big moves. And that's kind of how I feel in the poems itself also, which is why I said they were so accessible. Other, people that are not, don't read poetry a lot will still feel a sense of understanding in this work and connection. So do you think you could kick us off with a poem from Ordinary Moments? So you need your mic. You need your mic. Oh.
I wrote some epistolary poems for the first time. An epistolary poem, for some of you that do not know, is a letter. And so I'm going to read one. I often find humor comes into my writing. So I'm going to read an epistolary poem, and that's the drawing in the book that goes with it. So if you have a book, it's page 65. Dear Joe, in my family, we were never to use the word bored, stupid, or hate in reference to another. You are boring, you are stupid, and I hate you. 51 reasons listed below. Number 1, you are mean with shady green eyes that lure, intoxicate, seduce. Number 2, rotted teeth with incisors that hang like icicles off my roof. Number 3, bad bat breath. Number 4, ugly hair, limp like greens left too long in my refrigerator. I will stop at 4 reasons, but you get the idea. This letter, folded in thirds, sprayed with disinfectant, written with deep wells of dislike and seething, reeks with a mental picture of carnal knowledge and murder in the first. You left your watch on the nightstand. I crushed it with the heel of my foot, mangled it, shards of glass lying there, and the engraved back, congratulations on your service, staring up at me. My right foot ground it to the floor. A pleasurable experience. 5, you think you are an awesome lover. You have fat hands. 6, you talk too much. Call me.
So I mean, this is such a great example to me of, there's there's so much sort of restraint in this piece. I mean, it's an epistolary piece, but you've really kind of shaved it down to its essentials. And it's so relatable. I mean, just this list and I think there's so much that we can see in this about our own weird romantic lives and choices. And but I also want to point our attention to things like bat breath, and icicles off my roof, and deep wells of dislike and seething. It's like you've mixed this. It could be like this, Dear John kind of, Dear Joe kind of letter, but it sort of stopped. It sort of stops us with some of the details, and I really love that. And then this call and the humor too, of course, call me, and the observation. I mean, the watch with, congratulations on your service. I mean, I was really that really strikes me as something that, you could easily miss. So I guess I'm curious about your relationship with
Men?
well, sure, sure. If you want to go there. But what, maybe this is kind of an impossible question, but sort of why does that draw your eye? Like, what are the things that draw your eye? And
My eye?
your gaze, like the watch and the bat breath and the, I don't know, like how do you see what you see?
Well, I can smell the bat breath and I can visualize every single thing in that poem. I mean, it's so easy for me to visualize and see that. I can see that watch. I can see I mean, I think writers can do that. They visualize, and the drawings were very easy for me. Those are just doodles. Remember doodles from years ago? Those are easy drawings for me. The only thing that was difficult for me, just to kind of insert this right here, but after it was accepted by the publisher in the spring, I asked if I could take some out and put some others in. That was hard for me to redraw new images for the new poems because it felt forced to me. And the others were just early morning scribbles, and they happened to work because I used a black magic marker and did. But it was the new poems that had been published in other magazines. I wanted them in, but to draw those, that was, then it became more, maybe 4 or 5. But
Would you say that the drawings feel more improvisational in the
totally.
moment that you're doing them? So
Oh, totally.
trying to map them to
Yeah.
another poem.
Well, because I was coming home from Plunkett Festival, right, Judy? Yeah, we did some epistolary poems and I got this idea. So on the way home, I was drawing it in my mind. So I already knew that it was going to, and I like my characters to have these long, skinny legs. So anyway, I knew what the drawing was going to be by the time I got home. Judy was driving, so I could think.
Well, it's an interesting, I guess, tension. This what you said about sort of writers do this. They look for those details, which is not exactly improvisational. I mean, it's being with something in a really deep way, and in a way that's maybe attentive or lingering, And so in some ways, yes, it's the things that we catch, but there's
Is it deep or surface?
I think that's the search for those, like for me, my experience is it takes a while to attach, like I have the experience of something and then, but then to attach a language to it is the part that takes more time. It's like, it doesn't necessarily, sometimes, yes, things just sort of happen spontaneously and quickly, but to describe moments or interactions or conversations or feelings beyond the sort of beyond the surface, beyond the immediate. That's more attentive. That's more sort of searching for what is this really, or how is this really? So it's a kind of a tension between what feels sort of instinctual and improvisational in the
Right,
experience, and then
right.
sort of like the work of writing
Right.
about it.
But yet I think, Ben is here and he's a pretty big artist. And I think when it's right, don't you? And so when you're writing, he's a painter and clay and everything. I think just like when you're writing, all of a sudden it feels like you have captured that moment. And I'm hoping that's what these are. I mean, we have some pretty big poets in this town. So I always feel like this is kind of, cereal to pancakes and eggs. And because these are pretty simple. I'm not cutting myself down on that because that's just the way it is. But, I had to laugh at myself because I went to Meredith's Peace and Justice and Women the other night, and I wrote my first ranting poem where I could really be mad and rant. You're here, aren't you, Meredith? Did I rant? So anyway.
Well, I want to kind of work on this word simple because, or take a moment with that, because my experience of these poems is they're not simple. There's a spare, they're spare, they sort of shave away a lot of they're kind of like they've shaved away so much of what they could have included, and they're sort of down to their essence. I mean, and this poem is maybe a great example of that. It's sort of like, it's pretty clear. They're clear. They're not simple. They're clear. They're spare. They're precise. They're directed. So anyway, that's my version of that.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
But
It's a hate-love poem.
It's a
We've all felt that. We're so mad and so disgusted with someone, but at the same time, they're quite
You're
desirable.
sort of impressed by, you were sort of impressed by how disgusted you.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah, I think we've
I
all
could-
been
yeah.
there through the years. Should we have one of our?
yeah, I was
Our
going to say,
readers
let's
come?
have one of our special guest readers come, and you get to pick who that is.
All right.
Who our first reader.
All right. I ask 3 people to read. And now that my son is here from Chicago, I guess he's going to read too, as a surprise. But Jack, why don't you come up and read first? Jack is my new neighbor. He's just moved to the Belfast community, doesn't really know anyone, and I thought it might give him a chance to see who we are.
Great. Welcome, Jack.
Shall I sit?
Yeah, have a seat. Well, I'll hold this in case. This is my improvisational seating area. I forgot my stool.
I brought notes.
Okay.
Why did you choose this particular poem, Jack?
I think you promised you weren't going to ask that question.
Oh, did I? Oops.
That was a lie. But she did ask me this question. For what I consider trivial reasons, this poem is about this boy. I guess it's a woman, moving. Her family moving a lot, and my family moved a lot. Maybe I lived in 5 or 6 different cities up until high school. I used to ride my small bike around a driveway. Seems impossible now that could entertain a 5th grader, but I did. The packing up your whole belongings. We didn't put them into a single vehicle, but a very weird experience when you're young. And This poem has her waving to friends, the whole family waving to friends, and that I never had that experience. So anyway, I sort of connected with this poem on many fronts. Is that okay?
Yes.
The poem is called Maple Street, 1952. My brother walks to school. My father rummages in garage. My mother straightens pillows, tends to plants as though this house is a forever home. I ride my small blue bicycle up and down the driveway. A kid wrapped in a play landscape, unable to understand. Through a shroud of a dark afternoon, we pack memories, carry our boxed life into the old Nash Rambler. Our house will be empty soon. Our dog, Buster, follows us out. We wave to friends, neighbors, playmates unfamiliar with our ritual of looking for a better life.
Thank you, Jack. I love this, also just the connection to that particular poem, that Jack had. And it's so familiar. I mean, if anyone's ever moved from one place to another and the packing up. And I think what's remarkable to me, Marjorie, about this poem, and again, kind of going back to what your word is simple, but I don't think it's simple to get into the mind of that fifth grader. And you wrote that poem in that mind with with the sort of, in some ways, the fifth grader doesn't see the nuance and the shadings and the changes and the sort of subtext of that story, of that experience. And I think it's actually really difficult to write without all of that. And that was the sort of, to me, that poem is so skillful because you really restrained yourself from bringing all 79 of your years to that piece. You sort of strip back to the child who's experiencing that. And I would say that it's like you gave like a little, you put like a little pebble in there of the poet Marjorie, 79-year-old poet Marjorie, the dark shroud of afternoon. It's beautiful.
It's interesting too, because isn't it funny in our life, that blue bicycle of mine, when everybody else had their big Schwinn's, and I was pedaling this tiny little blue bicycle with my dog Buster, and that appears in many poems. Isn't it funny how that works though?
Yeah, and the Rambler. Wait, no, yeah, the Nash Rambler. Yeah. Sure.
Do you want to read one?
I'll read one.
Okay.
I'm going to read one called Cityscape. Let me find it here.
You check the content to see at the front. We're trying to make this so we're done by 7:30. So we have a lot to fit in because we have some other readers. Okay.
This is called Cityscape. In a second floor flat, a woman places scratch green paint on a canvas. With her finger, she pushes, shoves, caresses that rascal of a barking low dog green into a stark white of the stretched cloth. Crimson cascades into tunnels of blue until jagged mounds of purple appear. The artist checks her watch, then sits on the rotting windowsill, watching the woman below. A thin, howling wolf of a woman scuffles down the alley, singing in a faintly human voice. Hat askew, plaid sneakers taped to her feet, an old body, bent, pushing an empty cart. It had been an endless night with no rewards. City streets rake hard on women, women who live in alleys, homes and cardboard boxes, pissed on by passing predators at midnight. A street where stars are teeth in a gaping mouth, and female logic barely defines sanity. The woman crawls into her cardboard box with only a pockmarked memory of night prowling. On the sill of the second floor flat, the artist remembers the slight white border of raw canvas. So beautiful. Thank you. Not simple. Human compassion. The howling wolf of a woman. I mean, you really feel the artist in this piece, which is perfect for the subject. Do you want to say anything about this poem?
No. Not really. But I love the visual for me of this. I mean, if we all have been, if we've been in big cities, seen the homeless. And I remember I was in San Francisco many, many years ago, in fact, with my 2 daughters, and there was a street woman pushing a cart, and she had to go to the bathroom, so she takes a paper cup out right there on the sidewalk and pulls her dress up and pees into the cup, and didn't think a thing about it, and things like that definitely are part of my writing. Things that had impacted me, because we can talk about the homeless and we see them sometimes at street corners, but combining my painting and the street person, that was what that was about.
It also makes me think when I'm writing, I think the writing, for me, the experience of writing is about 5% writing and about 95% observation. And so that even when I'm observing, there's a kind of writing that goes on in the space, in the sort of space of observation. And that's what this poem also reminds me of, is when the artist is considering her canvas, there's also everything else that's going on that's actually part of the that informs what's going to be on the canvas. And I think, so there's this, it's kind of difficult to pin down when one ends and the other begins. When does the art making start? Because I think it starts sort of, it's pre-verbal, it's pre-paint,
Right.
pre-canvas.
There's the little drawing that goes with the one that she read. That's one of my favorite ones. I like that. Somehow I was able to catch that feeling of homelessness, and it was just a quick drawing, but I like that little one right there. Why don't we have another reader?
Let's have it our second
All right,
reader.
Cynthia, do you want to come up?
What did you call it?
Just read.
A Granddaughter's Tale. A Granddaughter's Tale. In the early hours before dawn, grandmother moves through the dark cabin. I hear her slippers shuffle an old folks dance as she moves through worn furniture. A thief stealing time before family wakes. The creak of the cabin door tells me she steps outside to find her chair. In darkness, grandmother will wait for birth of a new day. To hear a bird call to its mate, for rustle of a small animal as it moves through dry leaves. Signs life will continue today and possibly tomorrow. I creep downstairs, join her in the light of full moon. Together, we whisper like children, sharing a secret, a song that only we can hear.
Thank you, Cynthia. It occurs to me that you were saying before we started that the commas you were identified with the commas. And I said, well, I think it's also one of the things, it's the pause that a comma creates on the page. And there's a lot of, I mean, in line breaks and poetry, you can sort of create those pauses too. I mean, although I'm not sure how many commas you use. There were no commas in that poem. But what I also noticed about that poem was the editing that you did. You know, there were some like parts of speech like articles that went bye, which is a really which is great. You know, it sort of, again, it sort of creates a spareness, and it removes the ornamentation of language in some ways to get to the heart of what needs to be said.
Yeah. I think another reason about the comma is it looks like it's dancing a little bit, and I kind of like that feeling. I will read another one, and then I ask another one of our readers to come up, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one is called Moment of Pretend. Lucky. Before the heat of the morning, before the sky is immense and impossible, Grandma tells me I am lucky. She tells me old sorrows lurk as if her fire has grown cold and embers no longer glow red. I am a child distracted by a bug crawling on the windowsill. She tells me of grandfather long dead, of Aunt Ida who scared me, and Uncle Ed who smelled of mold in dark places. I want to ask her what she means by lucky, but I smile and point to the bug. Grandma shrugs, mumbling on about Cousin Judy, 7 years old, heart-shaped birthmark under one eye, hit by lightning, found dead in the hayfield behind the old barn. Grandma is sad. I want to tell her Grandpa now dances with an old lawnmower, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and Aunt Ida is a marsh hawk, wings flapping, gliding through summer heat. Bug crawls onto my finger. Drawing it close, I whisper, I am lucky.
Thank you. Since this is also a grandparent poem, I mean, will you tell us a little bit about your grandparents?
I had great grandparents, very different from each other. One just as poor as church mice, and the other's not. But I do write about them in my family, and that's part of my history. And yeah, I have nice, warm, fuzzy memories about that. So, yeah.
I have good memories of certain grandparents.
Well, me too.
So, but it's funny how over time, I have this story about my grandmother. a sort of standoff in the kitchen that I had with my grandmother when I was 5. And it's like it's been like a signature story of mine, of sort of like the source of a lot of writing. And but it's like the longer I'm from that moment, the more I see about my grandmother. I mean, for many years, that story was just about me. So it's really interesting to me is that writing also helps. It's sort of like a telescopic exercise where you can sort of start to see way more
Absolutely.
over time.
Yeah. I also think that the name of the book is Ordinary Moments. And so you realize that these are just ordinary moments. These are part of just life, like the bug on the windowsill. That's no big deal. But it's an ordinary moment. And so I was going to have the book called Come a Little Closer. Then I realized it was a hit tune. True. You're supposed to Google it and find out where it is and everything. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Come a Little Closer. That's a popular song. Then I was feeling my age for sure. Anyway, go ahead.
But I mean, that's what we have as our ordinary moments. And I think that we start to feel lucky about having as many as possible. Do you want to have another reader come up?
Oh, yes. My daughter, Amy, shocked me by saying, I'd really like to read one, Mom. I said, okay. It's my daughter, Amy.
Hello.
Oh, wait a minute. I've got it.
Oh, flip the thing. So I have watched Mom do this entire book in all of the pictures, and it has been a labor of love. And it turned out so fabulously. And if everybody sees the little red balloon at the back, so precious. So she asked me to read Maverick, which I'm a little uncomfortable because it's a little sexual, but I can do it. I can do it. I've been practicing. I can do it. I won't feel awkward at all. No, it's gonna be great. So it's called Maverick. And before I start, just so her ex-husband, my father, basically is John Wayne, right? Like, just as I read this, he's a cowboy. He has swag, that John Wayne old boot way he walks into the bar. Cunning, seductive, sizzling, like rare steak placed on hot coals. He will smell of rubbed and worn leather, an unbranded, melt your heart, growling kind of man. I lay with a man once who intended no burn. He arrived tender. Soon fire filled his devil and crimson rose from prodding hands. Honed to perfection, his words oozed sweet slime. I moved as a broken clock surviving on lust. The cowboy sidles up to the bar, our contact brief. His thoughts are on parting legs, women who lie on shifting sand arching. To him, they are tarnished nails who bend. I hand him a shot of Jack Daniels. He scans the room, picking out, shooting down. He will conquer before the cock crows and late moon dust settles.
Thank you, Amy. How does it feel to have one of your children read a poem of yours out loud?
Well, so I read that poem.
That poem.
It was so funny. I'm in a poetry group and with Ellen Goldsmith, and I read this a while ago. This is just to be a little more sexual here. And she said, I don't get it. And the rest of the group said, oh my gosh, Ellen. So hopefully, hopefully. There's going to be one more reader. My son and my daughter-in-law surprised me by flying in from Chicago just for this. And I think Dan wants to read.
Great.
Would you like to read now? I don't know what you're reading. Oh, you don't?
Oh.
I have 3 children, each a year apart. Dan is my oldest.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Mom didn't know I was coming up here and or coming to here at all. And we have been, Amy and I particularly have been honored to read her poetry over the years. And we grew up with her as an artist. I mean, she's also a choreographer, a playwright, a sculptor, everything. And I would tell my friends that I grew up with nudes around the house, which was so weird because the boys would always want to come over and see stuff.
Not me nude.
Paintings.
Right.
But to watch her writing her art of the word grow and watch it develop and watch her work harder and harder. And then when I saw this book, it got really emotional for me because I grew up with these little doodles all my whole life. I mean, this is legacy. Like, this is so inspiring to me to think that she can learn an entire new skill set in a way. Something like painting was breathing, but writing was work. And I think it's absolutely amazing. So I've read this 3 or 4 times, and I had my favorite picked out, and I practiced. And then Mom opened with it. Dear Joe. Like, what a great classic one. I want to do that. And then I was going to do the one you read, I think. And no, the next one you read. Anyway, so I'm going to read one that I did not practice, but I wanted to say her writing is not simple. It's deep. It's very deep. I'm going to read one that is not necessarily feel good one, but it's so intense. It's called More Than One Victim. Sweat lies damp on my sheets as a demon voice penetrates through thin apartment walls. Death darts of anger hit the mark. A neighbor with curled teeth and rotting bones beats his lover after dusk. I struggle to realize a fiend hovers close. Too exhausted to be a crusader for this woman, this neighbor with flying saucer eyes and hair black blobs of silt. We pass in the hallway. A cigarette dangles from her swollen lips, cheeks bruised where he flexed his muscle. A chilling reality of the sound that enters my room in late night hours. We nod a silent greeting. I keep on walking, then turn to see her take a drag on her cigarette. I am a coward. And I think the other part is that there's so many things I didn't know about my mom. And to read like the one about that Jack read, I knew that. That's our life. Like, that's her life, my life. But that victim one, whew, that got you going.
This is in counterpoint.
In counterpoint, yes. Okay. Oh, yeah. This is nice. This one is called Faint Curve of the Day. It rained last night, the end of a long dry spell. Earth's beige yesterday, now clay brown as puddled mud melds into soil. Late summer turned itself around. Green slippered birds tangle with abundant food, and branches hang low until late August sun parches full day. Mrs. Wilson's cat ambles by. A mile south, cattle stir in Mr. Lambert's field, and the morning paper waits outside with news of interest only to locals. I pause, notice light resting on the wall, dragonflies leaning into the wind, and see the sky become a quiet shade of blue. When I feel the breath of a steamy afternoon, see the shy oriole peck orange halves hanging off my porch, I will understand how love weaves a soft curve through my day.
Thank you, Dan. Beautiful. I know you're anxious to reach the 7:30 mark. No, I know. Maybe just quickly, if there's if anyone has any questions or things that we didn't cover, they would like to have answered.
These are all drawings I did. I tore up the canvas and then put primer on it. And then use markers and looked at the book and the drawings for tonight. Thinking it might be more interesting for you. You don't have your microphone. Can you hear me? No, I can. Oh, it just won't be on the report. Oh, sorry. This is just torn canvas. I did about 2 coats of white primer and then took a marker, basically most of them today, a couple before, and just drew pictures from the book. So I just thought the only reason I did that is I thought it'd be more interesting for you to be able to visualize and see what went with some of the poems. And this is what's in the book. So otherwise, I think
Do
we're
you have-
gonna.
Do you want to read one more? Will you close us off?
Okay.
Close us out with another
I'll
read?
read. What should I read? Final gig.
Oh, I just had that open. That's funny. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming. This will be the last poem. This is the drawing from that one. Page 9. Page 9. It's called Final Gig. Puffs of gray hair sprout from under the old ball cap, and from the arms of his frayed flannel shirt, calloused hands appear. When he talks, his fists hit the table as if for the past 20 years no one listened. She is jutting knees and tall, more overgrown boy than girl. Grandpa, it's time. He moves slowly from behind the table as if his foot has gone to sleep. I can do this, Annie. He waves his hand in the air, his coarse body voice filled with indignation. Yellow squares of light lay on the floor of the old Grange Hall. He hobbles toward the stage, fiddle tucked under his arm.
Thank you, Marjorie. It's been such a pleasure to meet your family also and get to know you through these poems.
Thank you.
And I'm so we could keep talking about art, about seeing, about I think what's coming to me is just that the work of the kind of attention that art pays and writing pays to things is not simple, there's a kind of devotion to it. And I feel this in this collection. It's a real devotional work. And it's an incredible reminder that these things are happening all around. These ordinary moments are always available to us. And I really thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you. And thank you, Maya. And thank you to my readers. And thank you for everyone here tonight to share this book. I think that's it.
All right. We'll mingle.
Anything-
We'll say hello.
No,
We'll
no question answers, but
no question answers,
you.
I guess, but we'll be here and Marjorie will be here to, books are available in the back. There's still some treats available. So hang out and say hello and thanks again.
thank you so much.